we have a chance to try to extend our season record to 12 games. And that's important for us, and that's the only thing that's really pretty much on my mind. And I think that speaks for the masses when I say that. Defense is playing great. The special teams getting great field position. The offense is winning. The point of attack. We found ways to win.
You can't get to there until you take care of what's next.
I want to be number one.
Do you think you are the best?
Right now, at the time in life and where I'm playing at, yes.
Yo, Panther fans, what's the deal? Tony Dunn in the house on the C3 Panthers podcast. Usually it's Tuesday night, but this week we're bringing you a surprise episode on a Monday night because Tony is going on a family vacation tomorrow. So we don't miss a week, so we came a day early. Tonight's show, Benjamin Tears, G-Reg is the man, and training camp continues in preparation for the preseason. I'm here with my man, Cody Lashney, chopping it up. What is up, my friend?
Tony Dunn, what's up, baby? I'm ready to keep pounding like Kelvin Benjamin pounds a Golden Corral buffet table, baby. Let's go, baby. I'm ready to talk Panthers football.
Boom. Yes, we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Benjamin's tears. We'll be talking about how G-Reg comes to the defense. G-Reg, what was it? Was it fifth floor? I think it was sixth floor crew, fifth floor crew. Yeah, G-Reg in the house. That's right. And tonight, to help us give us a little insight into training camp, we're going to have Josh Klein from the Riot Report on to give us the inside peek. But
late night. What?
He's in the house. Look at this.
I was really saving that for.
I know you came out busting through the window.
My computer for a really long time, waiting for that to happen. But I think it was worth it. Worth it.
Yeah, paid off. All right, guys, you can follow us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. We encourage you to smash the thumbs up button on YouTube. Share the show with a friend. That's our attitude right there. Take the link and send it to one Panther fan. I guarantee you that they will like it. And if they don't, I would question their loyalty. Right? You can reach us on the Cat Calls line at 252-228-5098. And we'll feature those calls later in the show tonight. Guys, let's jump right into it and talk about this. Kelvin Benjamin came out firing hard, or I don't even know if it's firing hard. Kelvin Benjamin came out talking junk, and he comes out talking junk about Cam Newton. And what he had to say was, and this was to The Athletic, I believe. And by the way, they don't give away their stories for free, so I didn't read it through them. And it says, this is, quote, "I just think Carolina was bad for me. It was a bad fit from the get-go. If you would have put me on any other quarterback, let's be real. You know what I'm saying. Any other accurate quarterback like Rodgers or Eli Manning or Big Ben, quarterbacks with knowledge that know how to place a ball and to give you a better chance to catch the ball." So I gotta say this is that there sounds like some salty rocks there in Kelvin Benjamin's milkshake.
Yeah, more than a little bit salty, man. More than a little bit salty. It's whenever you blame someone else for you not being a good football player and to backstab your friend like that. I mean, Cam Newton and Kelvin were supposedly boys. And for him to didn't mention Eli Manning, a human interception machine. Dude, it's just, you really don't know what's going on through his head, man.
Yeah, first of all, the entire statement that he made is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, for him to call the three quarterbacks that he mentioned, you got Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers, two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, probably two of the top 8 quarterbacks the last decade, and Eli Manning, who has had a lower completion percentage than Cam Newton did his first 7 years in the league. Just so if you want somebody that's really good at completing passes, Eli Manning probably not a good person to use as your example. And if you don't like, if you have a problem with inaccurate passers, you're in the right spot there in Buffalo, because Josh Allen really puts balls on a dime. Nathan Peterman is a real beast at completing passes to the correct team. And AJ McCarron has a very attractive significant other. So I think that we can he's moved on to a much better situation from an MVP quarterback to a quarterback by committee. It's really frustrating. Kelvin is an interesting person. I think that we're probably going to touch on this in a few minutes, but Greg kind of said it best. He clearly is having his own kind of issues and his own problems, and whether or not he's taking them out on Cam, there must have been some sort of a falling out between those guys, because those guys were really close when they were with Carolina. And when he was traded, Cam said, you can't replace Benji, and we're going to miss this guy. It seemed like he was really upset. And then for this to happen, I'm sure it doesn't make Cam feel better, but it's it's such like a preseason smokescreen. Like, just by next Tuesday, we're really going to be talking about this. Like, are we going to remember Kelvin Benjamin versus Cam Newton in October? Because I won't. I mean, I'll be ready. I'm ready to move on right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll remember Cam Newton, and we'll remember that Kelvin Benjamin is just sore about not. I don't know. I think you're right. I think in that there had to be something personal that happened between these two. And if I was going to put my bet on it, it would be in 2016 when Kelvin Benjamin comes in after the Super Bowl run in 2015, and he comes in giant. And look, is that at first people acted like we were a little going overboard with the Benjamin weight, but he was up there in the 270s. It wasn't
that picture. It's not his best look.
The
one that everybody points out.
The big fat face one. And the one where what was it? I saw Pat Coltrane say this on Twitter. It's something like, "You're right. You were not the best fit." And he put a picture up of it, and it said Kelvin Benjamin's jersey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's something there that's going on, but obviously we see that, like I think Greg Olsen said later on, is that this has to do with Kelvin Benjamin probably dealing with some things that are happening to him personally. He probably looks around the league, sees a lot of guys who he came into the league with. Mike Evans just signed a giant deal. Odell Beckham Jr. is negotiating what will be a ginormous deal. You see these wide receivers getting paid around the league.
Sammy Watkins got paid. Sam draft class.
Yeah. So you get I think Sammy Watkins was a year before or two. I feel like he's been in the league longer, but at the same time, you see these guys getting paid throughout the league. You're the guy that gets traded away. And then you hear the press and you hear the fan base talk about how the offense improved without you. Now, I understand that there could be some sore feelings maybe of that, but probably this is him lashing out about some things he's probably upset with himself personally. Because when you look at his situation in Carolina, he's drafted after we cut Steve Smith. He is given the keys to the car. He is obviously made to be you go with this guy completely. And Cam did too. Cam would single him out and feed him the ball to the point where it felt a little force-fed at times.
Absolutely.
And he just did not he didn't excel beyond just what he could do based on his sheer size. And as Arthur Flood says in the chat room, he's the smallest 6'5" football player I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, Kelvin Benjamin, unfortunately, he's kind of been doing this for his entire football career. Even when he was a highly recruited high school senior, he was saying that he didn't mesh well with his quarterback. And he went to FSU, and during his redshirt freshman season, he said that he was taking a lot of plays off and he wasn't working as hard as he could, and he wasn't connecting with the quarterback, who was EJ Manuel. And if you can't make a connection with EJ Magic, I mean, I don't understand what you're going to do. And so
I actually kind of liked him.
Yeah, we all have a soft spot for EJ Manuel. I know I did. He was on my fantasy team at one point. I just think that, for me, when you have this when you have this track record of consistently blaming everyone but yourself for issues that happen to you in your life, at a certain point, you kind of have to look inside and say, maybe it's time for me to make a little bit of a change. But at the same time, everybody goes through bad times in their life, and everybody has issues, and we don't know what's going on in Kelvin Benjamin's life right now. So, we can all throw fire at him and make fat jokes and do whatever we want to do. Yeah. But, he's probably going through something that caused him to say these things. But at the same time, you got to be a professional athlete. That's part of your job, is to be smart and to say the right things. Maybe not the right things, but not the wrong things. There's a difference.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah, there's a difference between saying the right things and saying nothing and saying the wrong things. And this was obviously the wrong thing. I think Sean McDermott was very unhappy. That's not the kind of coach that he is. That's not the kind of thing that he wants to see from his team. Certainly not from a team that he's very close with. I mean, Sean and Ron Rivera are still very close. They talk all the time, and I'm sure it was embarrassing when he had to call Ron and say, this is what Kelvin said. I think that it's a tough situation, and it's tough. I'm interested to see how this season goes for Kelvin, because this is kind of a make or break year for him. I mean, theoretically, if he has a bad year, it's all going to go downhill pretty quickly for him in the NFL.
Yeah, is that he's in a contract year. They haven't picked up the 5th year option, or they did. He's in the contract year.
Yeah, he's in the 5th year.
It's the one where it, like you said, make or break. But you could see this if it goes poorly, like we don't hear from Benjamin much ever again. It could go that way. He could just, based on his sheer size, if he can stay healthy for a couple of years, can continue to compete. But I don't think he's going to be going out there and just being a highly sought after free agent prospect. And here, though, you're talking about guys saying the right things or the wrong things. Here's what Cam Newton had to say about it.
I ain't gonna go back and forth with him. I'm just gonna work. You feel me?
All right, you can barely hear.
That's all it is.
One more time.
I ain't gonna go back and forth with him. I'm just gonna work. You feel me? That's all it is. You know what it is.
So there's some shade there, though. There is some shade in that. While we're trying to say that Cam, look at how classy he handles it is, the shade was when he flipped it around and showed the treadmill.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And Tony, it's funny that you said you think 2016 was when the hurt feeling started. I think it was 2015. And, even though we didn't win that Super Bowl, if you were a Panther fan at that time, you are never going to forget that season. And the fact that we went through that whole thing the entire time, and Kelvin Benjamin didn't play any part of it. He saw how much fun we were having. I remember Jared Allen talking about it was an honor to be a part of that locker room at that time, So even though they didn't bring it home, Kelvin never, ever got to be a part of the true Panthers experience, I feel like. And I think he's been salty about that ever since. So I kind of agree with Josh. I do sort of feel bad for him,
Well, one other thing he had to say, too, is he went out and came back on Twitter in his defense. He said, I'm just crazy then. I was the one who buried my mom and skipped the grievance process to get back and help that team. Let's be real. It was all fake. And to be honest, I was salty. Who wouldn't be? I just been holding it in, and now I'm free. Hate me or love me. And all right, so there's two things about this that kind of irk me. One is when you kind of when you're trying to just pull at our heartstrings to like get out of something. So it is the whole point of, you might as well have said that it's like a student going to the teacher and being like, well, my mom had cancer 2 years ago and I'm still dealing with it. And I'm sure that does. And I'm not trying to diminish people's emotional things, but like, why is that now that you're just talking about how tough that was on you to just come right back to work? Why didn't you just say, hey, it was difficult for me to come back in the midst of all this personal anguish. And I tried to do my best at it. And I didn't handle it emotionally as well as I wish I could have.
Yeah, but that doesn't make Cam Newton an inaccurate quarterback.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Like that is if that's your issue, that is a legitimate issue, and you can have qualms about that. And I get that. I mean, that to me rings a lot more true than they didn't put me in a spot to succeed and Cam Newton is inaccurate and put me with the best quarterback in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to be a lot more successful. If Cam Newton has Julio Jones on the team, he's going to be a lot more successful too. You know, it goes both ways.
100%.
So it's a frustrating situation, but I think that it's, you know, it is what it is. The best phrase of all time, because I
never heard that one before on a podcast.
No, I know that's brand new. So I just made that up. That's my own. I
listened to that podcast too.
Yeah, you're good at this, man.
You're good at it. So you're talking about Kelvin Benjamin did put up 1,008 yards his rookie year, 941 in 2016. Declined in 2017, but a lot of that also, was in Buffalo. He had 475 yards while he was in Carolina. And if he goes 9 more games, you're talking, because it was 8 games through the season, you count the playoff game, you know, you got close to 1,000-yard season again if you just stay on pace. You know, you got to wonder if when he's talking about the accuracy things, is that when you're talking about when you look at the stat sheet, I don't know how much stats go into contracts, but, you know, maybe 18 more yards or 60 more yards or 10 more catches. Maybe in his mind that makes him the next level contractually or something. But, I mean, we all saw Kelvin Benjamin play, and this was, wow, Cam, look, Cam, first, he is free of any criticism here. This is a safe space for Cam Newton on the C3 Panthers podcast. And you've got the Secret Service agent right here who's ready to take a bullet for my man and will go to war on Twitter over at any time. But I'm willing to admit, look, Cam at moments can do some things better, right? Sure. But I think when we focus on when he misses or something that goes wrong or something, you point to this other guy that does this one thing better, it negates the 99 other things that he really does for us every moment of every game. And that's why we cherish him. And so maybe sometimes these guys, maybe it's Benjamin's ego a little too. Maybe he just doesn't feel like he is as cool as he used to be.
And wide receivers are divas too, man. They need the ball. They need to be fed. They need to be the number one guy. And then when they're not that, they pitch temper tantrums and they throw a fit. But if the numbers don't back it up, you have no reason to act like you're anything to this football team.
No, I mean, the thing is that it's a Cam Newton is not the most accurate quarterback in the league. Nobody's saying that by any means. But, you know, every quarterback, no matter who they are, even if you're talking about the absolute best quarterbacks in the league, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Exactly. Their strengths and weaknesses. You know, Tom Brady doesn't give you any sort of rushing ability or any sort of movability in the pocket. But what he does give you is intense accuracy. Cam Newton gives you a 6'5" linebacker that can run the ball like a running back, but he's never going to throw 75% completion percentage. And to be honest with you, I don't think that he needs to. I think that you look at the quarterback that Cam Newton is, and that's not the game that he has played. That's not the game that he will ever play. And if you're going to be disappointed by Cam Newton not throwing for 70%, 75% on a game-by-game basis, I think you're going to be disappointed by the kind of quarterback that Cam Newton is.
John Elway, career completion percentage of 56.9. Just going to put that out there. You know, is that I guess we forget those types of things. So, I mean, you're right. Is if Cam's a 60% passer and rushing the ball or keeping you alive with guys that are nobodies at times throughout and really giving you at any time Cam's on the field, you got a chance. there's something to be said about. We'll circle back to this and talk about G-Reg and some other things, but we've got Josh Klein from the Riot Report here. You can follow him on Twitter at Josh Klein Rules. And you are at training camp every day. Is this the first camp you've covered every day like this?
No, so I was here last year as well. Yeah, we're here. I'm here every single day. I'm at every single practice. It gives you a good feel for the way that the team is playing as a whole, and the way that it gives you a good picture of how these players are starting to come together. Because the reality is I know that for you guys at home, or for most people, you can't afford and you can't get to camp every single day, and so we try to paint a complete picture. But if the only thing that you see is the one video of Matt Khalil getting blown by Mario Addison, you think to yourself, well, set the season on fire. No, we're never going to win. But it's not just about each drill. It's about a culmination of all of these things and how they're kind of coming together for the entire summer. It's fantastic. I love it. It was 90 and 60 degrees humidity out here, and I sweated through my shirt. But the ability to get up and see these guys interacting on a daily basis, and you can see these rookies getting better as camp goes on. You can see the coaches getting in their face and coaching them and making a real difference in these guys. And then you can see things that you kind of see in camp translate to the preseason, then translate to the regular season. And it's magic to see. And just on a personal standpoint, to be able to see the way that the players interact with the fans on a daily basis, they don't get to do that very often. And some of these guys is out there for like 45 minutes after every practice signing autographs.
Who's that? You broke up just for a half second.
Oh, Torrey Smith is out there signing autographs for like 45 minutes, almost an hour after every single practice session. And Luke Kuechly is out there signing autographs. Thomas Davis, like these literal future Hall of Famers. Julius Peppers is out there signing autographs. Literally, future Hall of Famers will stay out there for 30 minutes just so they can interact with the fans. And it's fun to watch, not only to see the way that the fans react, but to see the way the players react. I mean, they love it just as much as the fans do.
Speaking of Julius Peppers, if I'm from Greenville, North Carolina, which is about 30 minutes away from where Julius Peppers played high school football.
Nice.
So I have been a Peppers fan is what solidified me as a Carolina Panthers fan. Like, it just was a match made in heaven. Can go back to that moment when I was really getting into football. And so I want to know, what do you think about Julius Peppers right now, coming off the PUP, the preseason PUP, had the orthoscopic surgery of the shoulder, minor in many ways from what we've heard, but it was still, it's still a shoulder surgery. And he is 38 years old, I believe now. He is a freak. But how do you feel about Julius Peppers holding up this season?
Well, I think they're really gonna limit him, especially in practice. Definitely in training camp, they're gonna limit him. And I think that you're only gonna see Julius Peppers out there for 35% of the snaps. Yeah. Oh, I mean, if he even practices on Friday.
Right.
I used to, when I would write the injury report last year, I would just make a joke that, like, on Wednesday, he just doesn't practice on Wednesdays. So, like, just don't get excited. He will still come out and have 2 sacks on Sundays. He's 37 years old. That's how they should just register him on the injury report, as like Julius Peppers,
37.
37. He's all set.
And a defensive end. It's not like you're playing in one of these other positions. And then you get this, is that, I feel like Peppers is at a point in his career, and he's had over 10 sacks like 8 times in his career, not 10 times in his career. But he, when you get when you're getting towards retirement, and you can kick off early on Thursday, or you can kick off early on, go play, sneak in 9 at lunch or something. That's what Wednesday is for him. And the other guys are like, man, you deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to be out there. Rivera said it best. I think it was yesterday. He said, we know what we're going to get from Julius Peppers, so we don't need to see him in training camp. But it is fun to hear like Eric Washington talk about Peppers or even some of these other like Brady Hoke, the defensive line coach, is like, Peppers is out there. He still want to learn. He's still asking questions, which to me is crazy that this guy that has 154 sacks and the most forced fumbles of any career active player is going to be out there asking like Brady Hoke, like, where should I put my hands on this rush, and like what happens if they do this and that kind of stuff. So that, I think that's what makes him one of the best defensive linemen ever to play the game, and on a personal note, my favorite Carolina basketball player of all time.
Amen to that. Amen to that. You just also wonder when it comes to like, how you're talking about the guys signing autographs and doing these extra things for people. I wonder if Pepper's like extra thing for Brady Hoke is like asking him a question. Like, I'm just going to do something nice for Brady today and make him think that I really care about what he says.
At all.
I love Pep, man. What an amazing player. And you're hoping that it can work right with who we got behind him, because sometimes it has nothing to do with Peppers. Is that can other guys cycle in and get rhythm and play well behind him in that case. Now, one of the things you mentioned about was this holistic picture that you are interested in painting for people that can't be there. We do work, we have all these things, and it's hard to see all of this. But one of the things that I've been interested in, and this is going to be a tough one. This probably be one you really need to go sit on, think, and write about, probably rather than.
No, I'm going to answer it immediately. I will come right off the top of my head. So I don't think about things.
What I'm interested in going back, because I think the acquisition of Norv Turner is going to be a far greater asset to this team than a lot of people are giving credit for. I think that we're going to give, and I'm not trying to Shula bash here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to compliment Norv Turner, and I think we're giving Cam Newton potentially an offensive coordinator, a guy with the experience, the pedigree, and the reputation that Cam deserves. What I'm interested in this is, can you see maybe the learning curve or how the offensive drills are organized that shows any maybe improvement in this step between last year and this year between the Shula? Because sometimes you just got to wonder. We understand that Shula wasn't that bad in some cases. Some people say he's the worst, but maybe it's not in the X's and O's. Maybe it's not in this. Maybe it's in like the organization of training camp and meetings and things. Is there a sense that that training camp with the offense is running pretty smoothly?
I think that the first thing to kind of answer that question is that everyone on offense seems to absolutely love Norv Turner. Whenever you ask any of these guys about Norv, they always get these like sneaky smiles on their face, like, yeah.
He puffs them up. He puffs him, every single one of them up. That's why.
He's also he curses like a sailor, like all the time. Really? And I think, and I think the players love it. A lot more than Shula is not scared to get in there and yell at them. Like literally will run out when he feels like somebody is either not given the right amount of effort or even just doing something incorrect. He will literally run out there and scream at somebody in their face. And it's kind of fun to watch. That was not the kind of coach that Mike Shula was. I think that Mike Shula was a very good X's and O's coach. I think that when it came down to, and I think he was very good at game planning, and I think he was okay at relationships, but I think that when you look at from a play calling standpoint, from a play to play standpoint, I'm not sure that that was his best quality, but I do think that is one of the things that was at. And
how do you compare that in juxtaposed to Ron Rivera? Do you hear Ron Rivera kind of going off on the players like that and really laying into them when they're not doing their job or when they're missing assignments, or is that just a Norv Turner type of thing?
I think, and this is based on some conversations with some of the people that have been at a lot more of these Ron Rivera camps, he saves them. He saves up his screaming and yelling for when he feels like they're really going to make an impact. Maybe he feels like they're not the practice is going a little lackadaisical, or things are kind of getting out of hand, that's when he's going to step in and he's going to start screaming at people. I think that was earlier this week. There was they had a run blocking drill where Rivera was just, he was on fire, just yelling at people. He was real pissed off at Jared Norris because he was in the wrong spot. Vernon Butler jumped off sides and he tore into him, like the kind of tear into him where everybody kind of shrinks back, like, oh God, oh no, like we're out in the open here. Like, and then I think that he does that instead of doing it on a daily basis. He shares it or saves it up. So then when he does it, when he yells, it really means a lot more. Whereas Norv will just yell all throughout practice because that's who he is. That's who Norv is.
Comes from a different time.
Exactly. No, he really does. The guy's been coaching for over 25 years, and you can really see it. He has seen everything from a training camp perspective. You think about when he used to be a head coach and offensive coordinator. When he started, they were doing two-a-days. They were doing the, you don't get any water until you score a touchdown, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And those kind of things are obviously they don't exist anymore. But he comes a little bit from a different era. But I think when you look at Norv Turner, the best case scenario is that that San Diego Chargers team that he had when he had Phillip Rivers and he had LaDainian Tomlinson, he had Antonio Gates, he had Vincent Jackson, he had Malcolm Floyd, and those pieces kind of match up to what he has here in Carolina. Christian McCaffrey is a fast back that they can put a lot of things into the playbook for. Greg Olsen obviously is Greg Olsen. And I think that is the kind of quarterback or the kind of offense that we're going to see from him. I honestly think that if Cam Newton can stay healthy, you're looking at a really exciting offensive season for the Panthers. Well,
I am wearing my "Put It in the Bank" T-shirt right now, and that's where we need to put that trophy, right in the bank. I think that when you talk about Norv Turner, generally, and this is maybe I'm getting old man, and you can ask Zach about this, old man curmudgeon-y, where the kids these days out of control. But I typically think people who dump on Norv Turner are younger than 25.
Sure.
And they just didn't get to see some of the specialness that were associated with some of his teams. And I think there's an argument as well that, even on his worst moments, when you look at Cleveland, he had, I think at one point he was starting Terrell Pryor or something. Not Terrell Pryor. Who was Jason Campbell? And he was Jason Campbell was
that's just as bad.
Yeah. And so, and when you look at some of the things, even the place where he had troubles, and then San Diego, and it never looked like it was the offense that was the problem. It was special teams and defense. It was missed kicks. It was a kickoff return against in 2008. I went back and watched the 2008 tape at the very first game of the season for the 2008 Chargers. The first play of the season, Percy Harvin runs a touchdown back. I don't know if that's on the offense.
Yeah, no, that is it. I feel like the San Diego Chargers, I was listening to another podcast, and it's the San Diego Chargers have been cursed for the past 10 years. They just can't get anything right. And then this year they got all the injuries and stuff. It's the Chargers organization is something's happening there. Their stadium's on burial ground, or somebody buried the wrong thing or put something. It's yeah. I couldn't come up with a good joke there, so I just abandoned it.
Curse put on them or something.
Yeah, exactly. How about this? Is one of the guys, and we'll ask you about these wide receivers, but I will start with Curtis Samuel, also activated back. How do you feel about what Curtis Samuel could be, or what the Panthers maybe potentially want him to be this season?
I was really impressed with last year the way that Curtis improved his route running. Because one of the things before the season started, we were talking to, we had Al Wallace on the It Is What It Is podcast that's powered by the Riot Report on the Riot Network. That's what the kids call a plug. Go out and download it on your favorite podcast app. And he said that one of the things that he noticed was that, Curtis Samuel was unbelievable athlete and knows how to run fast and knows how to beat people in a foot race. But there's a big difference between beating somebody in a foot race and playing wide receiver. because even if you beat somebody in a foot race, you still have to get your head around. You still have to be in the right spot. You still have to put your hands in the right place and make the play, complete these catches. And even the play that he got injured on, he sped himself. He ran a great route. He put himself in the right spot, and then he couldn't hang on to the pass. And that to me was Curtis Samuel's rookie year in a nutshell. He was almost there, and he couldn't quite make that jump to making a spectacular play. And I think that he would have really benefited from a full offseason of workout. And I think we might be, I'm hopeful that he's 100% and that he can spend this entire year learning from some of the veteran wide receivers that are in that room now and make that jump from freak superstar athlete to freak superstar wide receiver, because there's a big difference in those skill sets. And I think that he is going to make some plays. I think Samuel and DJ Moore are kind of in the same spot where they're gonna make some plays, but at the same time, I think they're still maybe a year away from being that high end contributor that you can look to on a drive by drive basis, instead of every third or fourth game maybe they flash and they have 4 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown.
What does this do to one of the things that and all Panther fans are doing this, who are starting to think about as these preseason games come, as training camp is getting on the back end, that we're going to have to cut the roster from 90 to 53. Somebody told me it's 54 if you count the international players or something like that, but it's 90 to 53 is generally, we'll just stick with that kind of. And I went back and I wrote a article on CarolinaCatChronicles.com a while back.
Oh, that's a nice plug right there. I see what you're doing. That's a real nice plug. Professional.
It was about how Marty Herney and his difficulty in finding a 2 receiver combo that actually worked other than Steve Smith and Masim Muhammad. And I was going back and really looking at the cuts and trying to figure out how many wide receivers they kept every year. And Marty Herney only kept a 6 wide receiver or more. I think one, and it's been so long since I read, either 1 or 2 years out of his entire tenure at in his first stint. So with that said, we're talking about Devin Funchess being a lock, right? We're talking about DJ Moore, obviously a lock. Torrey Smith seems to be starting and a lock. And then you got to wonder about Curtis. So where do we fill in? And the reason, and what am I trying to get to, Cody? You know where I'm going. I'm interested in one player only, and one player being Damiere Byrd.
Watch him for sure.
He's our guy. He's been on the podcast twice. He is my dude, and I've been telling everybody this since he was undrafted free agent. But once again, Damiere Byrd, bubble fighting as usual. But where do you see this? Because there's Jarris Wright as well. There's Curtis Samuel and there's Damiere Byrd. How do you see this shaking out?
I think it's going to be. I think in a perfect world, the Panthers can keep all 6 of those guys on the roster. I think that there is a clear top 5, and just like you said, Damiere Byrd has been fighting on that bubble his entire career. And it's really just a question of whether the Panthers feel like there is someone else at another position that can help them. Maybe they need depth somewhere else. When someone like Darrell Williams gets hurt, that is the kind of thing that hurts Damiere Byrd's chances more than the way that he plays in training camp. They know who Damiere Byrd is. They know what he can bring to their team.
And on the field, not just in training camp. He does it in the game, folks.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're not going to hear anything disparaging about Damiere Byrd from me. I think he's had a very good camp and been pretty consistent. And I think that it's really just a question of whether they feel like they can get more out of that roster spot from somewhere else, whether it's another linebacker while Thomas Davis is not going to be on the field, or another lineman. I think ultimately, if you're going to put me on the spot, I think ultimately they're going to keep 6 wide receivers, and Damiere Byrd is going to make the roster. So you're welcome.
Kenyon Burner, see you later. Right, that's where. I like Kenyon Burner too, but Kenyon Burner. He is Burner. All right, so now let's go on to this Dante Jackson and Rashawn Golden. Here's your pro plug right here. Hashtag OM Golden. Oh my Golden is my creation right there. I'm a big Golden fan. I was one of those people that said, hey, Funches, quit crying just because Jarris Wright got knocked down. I understand that it was a little harder than you guys are accustomed to, but don't paint my man out as a damn villain here. But tell us about these two rookies. Dante Jackson has obviously been the sensation. Looked great in that video against Damiere Byrd. And by the way, Damiere Byrd looked smoking good in that same video as well. Just great plays all around. What do you get? What's the sense of these two rookies and how they're fitting in?
I think that Dante Jackson has played really, really well. I have been very impressed with him, the way that he has matched up on the outside. With DJ Moore, I knew there was going to be a fun battle, but when you see him interacting or matching up with Devin Funchess, who has 5 inches on him, something like that, and he's able to stay with him. And I think that he has shown a lot more from a coverage perspective than I thought that he was going to be able to at the NFL level. I'm really excited to see what both he and Golden can do over the course of the preseason, because I do think that that's going to make a huge difference. So much of Golden's game is that physicality and the ability to hit people, which obviously sometimes gets away from him in practice. But it's something that I think is, when he can actually make some contact in these preseason games, I think you're going to see the best of what Rashawn Golden has to offer. I think that they're going to ask a lot of these guys. I don't think that whether or not they get the first snap of the season against the Cowboys, I don't think makes that much of a difference.
Right.
But I do think that over the course of the season, you're going to see a lot of action from these guys. And I think
Do you think it's a possibility Golden could be a starting free safety after week 10?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the other thing, I think that maybe we're underestimating Denoris Searcy as well. Searcy fits a really nice role. And I think that he and Adams have the way that they communicate back there. It's like they have that veteran presence, and being a safety is not sometimes it's not as much about being in the right spot. It's about directing other guys to be in the right spot too. So when you're a rookie, it's hard to do that when you're trying to just get your head around learning a brand new position, basically, and trying to make yourself play well, and to also tell David Mayo that he's in the wrong spot 2 seconds before Drew Brees is about to snap the ball. That's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of stuff. But I think that Rashawn Golden is a real smart kid, and he's going to be a good player. I think that the Panthers made a good pick, and I'm excited to see what these guys can do on the field.
Josh, if you were a betting man, who would you say starts on the other side of Bradbury? Did you think that's going to be Kelvin and Seymour, or do you think that Dante Jackson might steal that spot?
I think that Seymour is probably going to be starting week 1, but that doesn't mean, I think the rotation that we saw last year with Seymour and Worley, I think you're going to see more of that this year. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of it from an inside and outside spot.
Could it be flipped? Because I feel like we've always said that Worley was like this better zone coverage guy, and that Seymour seemed to do better in man, but Dante Jackson seems built for man-to-man situations too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that you're looking at a situation where it may not even be a zone versus man. It may be who the team is playing. So,
right.
Week 1, when you're playing against Cole Beasley and a kind of a shifty underneath guy, that might be a better matchup for Kevon Seymour. But when you're playing against Ted Ginn Jr., Michael Thomas, these guys that are a little bit faster and are built to go down the field, that sounds more like Dante Jackson to me. And I think that one of the things that Eric Washington really likes about the secondary is they could put anybody anywhere. I think that's one of the things they liked a lot about Golden, is that he doesn't necessarily have to play a strong safety, free safety. You can have him in the huddle, and then all of a sudden he's playing nickel corner.
Yep.
And it's just, I think that Eric Washington is a real cerebral guy, and I think that he has a lot of things in store for this defense that are going to be like, when you watch the tape on Tuesday, it's going to be like, oh man, I didn't even notice that they were doing this kind of stuff. And, hopefully it's going to be something that kind of frustrates the offenses.
I know you got to get out of here. I got a couple last questions for you. First, we've been a big fan of the upgrade. We believe it's a strong upgrade in Dontari Poe. Not trying to knock Star Lotulelei, but at the same time, I believe that Poe brings an added level to the game. Quiet fella there, but how are the guys respond to Dontari Poe? Because it seems like, from what I can tell, there's kind of this quiet respect for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's make sure that we point out that Star Lotulelei's profile picture for the Buffalo Bills is maybe the best profile picture in the history of profile pictures. I mean,
it is 2 frowns. How do you have 2 frowns?
Unbelievable. I love it. Like, I want to make it my phone background, but I don't feel like that would be appropriate. But it's like my favorite thing that's happened in the past week. I think that Dontari Poe is, you're absolutely right. I do think he is a very similar player to Star, but he is like an upgrade over Star. I think that they both have that. They're spectacular run stuffers, great at taking up space, but Dontari has that ability to rush the passer that I think Star didn't necessarily have. Star was not bad at rushing the passer, but I think Dontari is very, very good at it. It's really just a question of whether he can stay healthy, whether he can stay at the right weight and stay on the field. But what you see from Poe on a game-to-game basis, when he's at the top of his game, it is, he's one of the best defensive tackles in the league, and you put him next to KK Short, and it's terrifying. And then you have guys like Vernon Butler coming off the bench, Kyle Love, even like Kendrick Norton, who is probably competing with your guy, Damiere Byrd, for one of those last roster spots. So I think that the defensive tackle spot is going to be awesome, but the way that you should have heard K1 Short spoke today, and I'd imagine probably CarolinaPanthers.com has a video of it, but the way that he talks about Dontari Poe, he has those like stars in his eyes. He's like, oh, he's a quiet guy, but man, he is like terrifying when he gets on the field. And he really is. He's a beast. So
yeah, I'm excited. What can you learn can you learn anything about the running backs in training camp?
No, not really. I mean,
that's what I've been saying.
Yes. Someone asked me about CJ Anderson today, and it's like, I mean, hey, he's out there. Like, he's out there. He's taking handoffs. But you know who looks great in training camp every single year is Cameron Artis-Payne. And he looks fantastic this year because that jump cut is unbelievable. No, I'm not going to.
That's another one of Tony's favorite people.
That's another one of my favorite people. I feel like this is, again, I always bring him up in this, is do you really ever win a job in the NFL? Sometimes I question the objectivity of coaches and like saying, hey, the best man wins the job. Sometimes I don't think that is the case. Last question for you. Wait.
I got to tell you, I got to say something about Cap real quick, because Cap is like one of my favorite players. The way that he runs the ball is unbelievable, and running the ball is not a problem for Cameron Artis-Payne. But when you look at the way that he does the other stuff that running backs need to do, that's where he kind of runs into some trouble. So the game when Jay Stu was out last year, and Cap was the primary running back. Do you know how many pass protection snaps Cameron Artis-Payne had in that game?
What, 1?
It was the same amount as you and the same amount as me. 0. No, he didn't take any pass protection snaps like that. That's not good for a running back. And again,
sometimes I think the coaching staff is just scared, man. Like, I think they make fears up, like, as they make it. They didn't have a problem with Christian McCaffrey being weak in pass protection.
Yeah, but I think that Christian McCaffrey offers you a lot more from a decoy standpoint, and those were probably checks. And I'm hopeful that Norv takes that kind of stuff out of their offense, because Christian McCaffrey does nothing for you as a pass protector.
Amen.
That's one of the reasons why they brought in CJ Anderson, is because he's one of the best pass blockers in the league.
He's great. What were you a Panthers fan before you got into the business of journalism?
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. So yes. I moved to Charlotte when I was 12 years old, right when the Panthers got the team, right when they basically announced that the team was coming to Carolina. And we had season tickets. There was a point where I had been to every Carolina Panthers home game until I went to college in Chapel Hill. And yeah, I started the Denver chapter of the Roaring Riot. I started the New York chapter of the Roaring Riot. Yeah, I mean, the worst part about this job, basically the only bad part about this job, is that I can't cheer in the press box.
Yeah, that would be impossible for me. I would rather not. I would rather just take my laptop into the stands. But my question to you is this: have you thought about how that influences the way you look at the team?
No, I mean, the reality is that you can. I feel like as fans, we can be a little bit harsher on the team than as journalists covering it. And my thing is that the way that I feel about the Panthers doesn't keep me from doing my job. And the reality is that every person in that press box is rooting for the Panthers to win because it's a better story and it's more fun to do the job when the Panthers are winning. That locker room is no fun to be in when the Panthers have lost. And believe me, number one is very excited when they win, and he is very sad when they lose, as you've seen. So, just because I am rooting as a fan and also as a journalist doesn't demean my integrity, if that's your question.
Amen. No, it's not. No, I just wonder if sometimes if you ever think about it when you're I think I would always be wondering, am I being too critical? Am I being, just something that would always be on my mind, not necessarily that we have seen anything of it. All right. That's Josh Klein, man. Tell us how we can find your podcast and where we can find your writing.
All right. Well, here we go. Cause I got a lot of stuff to say. I got a lot of plugs, a lot of things happening in my life. You can come visit me at the Courtyard by Marriott in Spartanburg. It's my home for the next couple weeks. You can check out the riotreport.com. Honestly, it's not just me. The stuff that our photographer and our digital content producer, Kevin Ketchy, is putting out. Like, if you like hype.
We know Kevin. Videos, he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, you should subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at our Riot Report, Instagram, Twitter, Facebooks, all of them. We put out different content on all of them. It's all pretty similar, but it's different content on all of them. We have great analysis from Vincent Richardson. Colin Cowherd does a great job at opinion stuff. I mean, the stuff that the rest of the team is putting out is much better than the stuff that I'm putting out. I'm just kind of lucky to be down in the trenches doing the reporting about it.
Saying all the right things.
It is what it is. Keep pounding. The Roaring Riot podcast. All of them are fantastic. We have 4 different podcasts, so no matter what you like, we have a voice for you. I don't want to keep anybody from listening to the C3 podcast. You guys do a great job as well.
We always, look, there is the one thing I think that stinks about a lot of people on the internet is that they think it's a zero-sum game. Limited space. No, is that we're just here having fun, and if you want to have fun, then hang out with us. If you don't, then, that's it.
Please do.
We thank you for hanging out with us, and we will continue to bother you on the internet as the days come. Tell Zach I said what's up, please.
I will. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for being here, Josh.
All right. That is Josh Klein from the Riot Report. Good friends with Zach Luttrell here. Is Good People's doing a lot of good things, and we're excited to see that. Let me see. He's out of here. All right, so let's go back. We've got still a lot. We got a lot of information. It's a Power Pack show. You can follow us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. Smash that thumbs up button if you like what you're hearing. We appreciate all of your support in the chat window. People on YouTube. I also want to go ahead and encourage people. Next week, we're going to be trying something new with the format. We're going to be using a platform called Shindig. Everything will still be on YouTube and on Facebook in that way. So you won't see a big change there. Where you will see a change is the potential for you to be a part of the show. Shindig is a video conferencing software that allows me to cycle in people in kind of a queue, and you can hang out in the show. You can put up comments and things. I can feature those comments on the screen, and we can even bring you in to hear your voice, similar to like we do with the Cat Calls Line. So if you're interested in that, you can download the Shindig app as well, or you can do it on through the Google Chrome browser. We'll have more details as we kind of roll that out. And I think as the season goes on, it'll become more and more fun. Cody, let's get back to unfortunately, we got to go back to I'm circling back to Benjamin. All right. And here is Kelvin Benjamin defending what he had to say, or at least commenting because he was censured by Sean McDermott and Billy Beane. Here's Kelvin Benjamin having to deal with the fallout of the media.
We saw the comments you made about your time in Carolina. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more about why you thought it was such a bad fit?
I mean, man, to be honest, man, I said what I had to say about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just focusing on the team right now and, what we got going on over here.
Kelvin, you had a discussion with Sean there at midfield. He expressed to us that he was disappointed with the timing and of your comments. I guess reflecting back, is that fine with you? What Sean had to say? I mean,
of course, man, because he's right. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, it's a team. And that can be a distraction to the team, and I don't want to be no distraction to my team. So, like I said, man, I'm moving on from that. I said what I had to say, and I'm just focusing on the team right now.
Why did you feel now was the time to maybe let some of that loose?
I mean, it was just a heat of the moment, man. I was angry at the time, so it just came out. So
you were angry Friday when you had the conversation?
Yeah, it's just
All right. Any particular reason? Or
no, it's no reason. No. I
just angry.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just got kind of frustrated. But
just salty.
Yeah, I must have gotten a text from my agent that said, "Sorry, no deal coming."
Yeah.
I mean, of course, man. There's a lot of great guys that was on that team. TD.
You ain't gonna be shaking nobody's hand, bro.
Have you spoken to any of them? Maybe some of the ones that those comments were directed towards since then?
No, not at all.
Do you plan on that? I mean, I know you said Thursday, but do you plan on reaching out before the game?
Reaching out for what?
I mean, to clear the air or explain your comments.
Well, specifically Cam. Are you going to reach out to Cam and just say, hey, whatever?
They're coming at him.
I mean, no, man. I'm just moving on. Okay. I'm just moving on.
Where? Yeah, that's a good series. They didn't let it go. I think that our media would have been a little bit more friendly to him if he was on our team doing that about somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the difference between media in New York, albeit upstate New York and Carolina.
Yeah, they were very polite. I mean, it was super polite. It wasn't confrontational, but they weren't going to just let him say, I'm moving on, and then that's it.
And every answer was Sean McDermott talking for him. Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott told him, listen, dude, that doesn't fly. You have not proven yourself here as a Buffalo Bill, and you didn't prove yourself as a Panther. And by the way, another little tidbit, it lets you know what the Bills front office thinks of Kelvin Benjamin, that they just traded for Corey Coleman from the Cleveland Browns. So it already shows you that they don't feel Kelvin Benjamin is capable enough to be a #1 receiver. They need to bring in another young guy that has speed, that can move and make separation, and they know that Kelvin Benjamin is not that. So, a lot of times actions speak a whole lot louder than words, and I feel like Brandon Beane just kind of showed with his actions what they feel about Kelvin Benjamin.
One guy whose words always sound great now, and he just is getting so polished and insightful, is Greg Olsen. Here's Greg Olsen on the matter.
What do you make surprised at all about Kelvin going in on camera?
A little bit. You guys know how I feel, obviously, about Cam. I've been very clear about that for a long time. I think if you ask the guys on this team, the guys that have played with him, it'd be hard-pressed to find anybody to say anything bad about him. And obviously, I'd be at the top of that list. I've told him a lot. He's been the best thing that's ever happened to my career. Coming here, this has been the best 8 years of my career, and obviously, he's a big part of that. So, as far as other people's experiences, it's hard to speak on how they feel. But I know my 8 years with him and countless other guys that have played with him have benefited from playing with him. And past that, kind of hard to speculate on how other people view it.
Ted Ginn's got to send him a package every year.
Yeah, he made Ted Ginn's career
the same way. But we all wish Kelvin the best. Obviously, things change, but but again, we've talked at length about how guys around here feel about Cam, and obviously you don't like people going after your quarterback. But I think Cam knows how the guys here feel about him, and I would imagine that's what he holds the most credence to.
So Greg Olsen coming out, and he's been a big supporter of Cam, and he's right. He said the best years of his career have been with Cam. I think that we tend to I think for me is that this is where I'm at, Cody, is that I haven't tried to make fat jokes about Benjamin. In fact, right, is that because to me there's some other jokes we can make, and that is like you get manhandled by 5'8" corners who weigh 180 pounds. You don't seem like you're hustling a lot at times. You're not a good blocker. Like, I think there's other things to talk about with him and his game other than just that, which is obvious as well. So I think Greg Olsen is like, hey, I've come from a place where I didn't have a Cam.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Greg says it all. There's only one tight end in NFL history that's had 3 consecutive seasons of over 1,000 yards receiving. And, I mean, that's Cam Newton helping him do that. Also, another point to remember, Cam Newton doesn't start last year with a shoulder injury if Kelvin doesn't give up on an interception that goes all the way to the house that then Cam Newton has to chase down and try and make the tackle. That's when he hurt his shoulder. Listen, man, Kelvin, it's like there are some people that when they make criticisms, you listen to them. But it's like I said, man, Kelvin hasn't proven anything to anyone anywhere. So I don't understand. I don't understand what it does for him. What does it do for him?
I think it hurts him, man. I think that this hurts him in a contract year, looking like you're a guy that's scapegoating.
Absolutely. And you know, it's another thing, man, when you don't take responsibility for your own self, you know, to say that, oh, man, I haven't had the breaks that I wanted because someone else wasn't doing their job. The MVP wasn't doing his job. Come on, dude. I want nothing more than for Dante Jackson this Thursday night to just rip the balls right out of his hand, dude. All 5 foot.
You think he'll play?
You know what? I do.
Maybe.
I do, man. I really do. I think that it's one of those situations where they need to see him with Josh Allen, who's a brand new quarterback that they have, Nathan Peterman. They need to build up this connection that he doesn't have with them there. He had Tyrod Taylor throwing him the ball last year. Tyrod isn't there anymore. So it may not be very long. It might be for a series or two. But, man, I'm just hoping that either Munderland or Jackson or Golden, someone just lets him have it, man.
Lino in the chat room says, did you see the Bills training camp video of Benjamin tipping the ball and it getting intercepted? It was a pass he should have caught like usual. I didn't see that one, but I don't it doesn't surprise me. Here, there's a couple of I do want to get through these Olsen clips because they're just so good. Here, Olsen more on the Benjamin.
One, the NFL is at this time of year, there's 90 guys on a roster. All 90 of those guys have a story. All 90 of those guys have struggles, football-wise. That's not unique. We enjoyed Kelvin for the most part. He was a good person to have around. Things didn't work out here for him. I know it. I get it. I know what that's like. But you'd like to see him just kind of move forward to his new team and embrace his new opportunity, rather than kind of go personal on it. But I get it. I've been shipped off from another team too, so I get it. But, at the same point, I always knew there was more I probably could have done at that point in my career.
I think this is an important part.
Improvements now the last 8 years to do what I thought I was capable of.
I think that's a subtle, not even a subtle way. I think it's just a very tactful way of saying like, hey, he was a pretty good guy in the locker room, but it wasn't saying that he was this just guy that they couldn't play without. And on top of that, he's saying, hey, look, when I'm looking internally at things I can control rather than externally and things I can't control. And that was clearly directed in a very political way at Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's like Greg Olsen is a consummate gentleman. he's someone that is a professional on the team. I think a lot of guys look up to him, and that's how you're supposed to act, man. And Greg Olsen has a lot to be thankful for, as I said already, because of Cam Newton, man. I mean, that connection that him and Cam have built, I mean, it's a reason why maybe both of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. I mean, he might not have Tony Gonzalez type of numbers, but but who does, but it doesn't matter, man. Greg Olsen, and the fact that I genuinely believe that Kelvin Benjamin, he was friends with a lot of guys in the locker room, and then for this to just come out of nowhere, I mean that has to blindside, especially people that have defended him this entire time. So I don't know, man. Listen, I honestly, I wish Kelvin Benjamin the best. I don't ever think that he's going to be a top flight receiver.
No, not at all.
In the NFL.
Clear.
Yeah, but I mean, I wish him the best, man. And I know he went through a hard time losing his mom, but in the end, you have to take responsibility for yourself. It's not all right to just throw your friends under the bus like that. It never will be, especially when you haven't proven that you're a top flight receiver.
Here's the best line from Olsen.
Think Cam hurt his progression early in his career at all?
I can't imagine that. I mean, he was the MVP, wasn't he? No, but just in general, I mean, you play with an MVP quarterback. There's like 4 of them and 5 of them in the league right now, right? So I don't know. Everybody feels how they feel. Obviously, you know how I feel and how we feel about
that.
Cam.
Just sounds so genuine.
And I think right now it's really all that matters. I mean, you could probably find a lot of people throughout the league that have opinions about me, you, Cam, the Panthers, our organization. People have opinions. That's just the world of today. And a lot of people's opinions are formed when they don't really want to accept things themselves.
How did Cam seem to handle it out there? I mean, I guess he's talked to you guys.
All right, that's I felt like just a very genuine remark, right? All right, yeah. I know, Cody, you got to bounce on out of here. I do know that you want to get in your ice up pick. I'm going to carry the rest of the show. I got a couple last things we're going to take care of with the cat calls and things, but tell us who you want to ice up before you go.
Yeah, man. So, listen, it seems like every once in a while this same story pops up, and there are people that make this bust of somebody's face. There was Cristiano Ronaldo. There was the girl from the U.S. soccer team. And whenever they're made, they look absolutely nothing like the person that they're supposed to resemble. So I sent you a link. I don't know if you can pull it up or not.
I probably can. Let me see. Let's see here. Nope. Let's see. Hold on. We'll get it. Keep going.
Yeah, so the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony just went down, and they showed off the bust of all the players, and they showed Ray Lewis and his bust. And if you looked at that, and I gave you 5 different guesses,
that's supposed to be Ray Lewis.
That's supposed to be Ray Lewis, dude. And people online are tearing it up. They're saying that it looks more like the person that he allegedly murdered than Ray Lewis himself. Dude, it's so bad, man. If I gave you 5 or 10 different guesses to tell me who that was, would you ever say that was Ray Lewis?
No, not at all.
Dude, you had one job, man. You had one job and a million different images to go off of. And dude, you can't even do that for a man that's being abducted into the Hall of Fame. Come on, man. So to whoever made that statue, man, this bust, ice up, son. Come on, dude.
All right, man. Cody, tell them where they can find you on Twitter until next week.
Yeah, man. Find me at CODYLAC on Twitter. I'm always tweeting about Panther football, Clemson football, And I believe this Thursday I'm going to live stream on my Twitch channel the preseason football game. It won't be myself. It'll be just myself on there, just reacting to it. You won't be able to see the game or anything like that. But come hang out. We'll talk about Panthers football. I'll let you know what I'm seeing. That's twitch.tv/Codais, Codais. And yeah, man, that's it, dude.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, man. We'll check you out next week.
Yeah. Peace and love, y'all.
Guys, we still got some show to get through here. I got some things we need to talk about. One of those, but before we get there, remember this is that thank you for tuning in and being a big part of the chat room. We see you guys giving that good conversation in there. You can reach us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. You can find our work on CarolinaCatChronicles.com. But we really want you to do is turn your phone sideways, portrait mode, and hit that thumbs up button, right? Maybe even hit, if you're feeling froggish, hit that share button and tell somebody that this was something that a Panther fan would enjoy. One of the things, though, that I've been interested in getting to was, and I wish that Cody could have been around for this moment. Cody was talking about how once the Kelvin Benjamin comments came out, he predicted that Colin Cowherd would open a show talking about these things, and he did. And Colin Cowherd, though, what Colin Cowherd does is he finds these anecdotal moments. And look, we're all susceptible to these types of things. We all have our beliefs, what we think is right, and we try to find evidence that supports those things. But when you disregard things or you use anecdotal evidence to make a case, we see that where this can bring us. It can bring us to Colin Cowherd in the sports world, or in other news this week or today, Alex Jones in the more political, it's hard to call it political, but paranoia maybe realm, that Alex Jones and his material, how it was pulled down from YouTube. Now, Colin Cowherd, though, is not a journalist necessarily, but a commentator, and he is trying to look for things that support his already formed beliefs. And now, but here is where I got a little upset with the Colin Cowherd show today talking about this. Here's Colin Cowherd talking about the Carolina Panthers fan base.
In the reality, though, is both Charlotte and Oklahoma City are non-traditional powers. And they both know they'll never get an athlete this dynamic, this sellable, this marketable, this talked about in their small markets. And so they have put their arms around Cam, and they've put their arms around Westbrook, and they have enabled them for years. And just now, 2 years ago, Carolina came out and called Cam out. And now they're getting him a quarterback coach. And it's too late. When you baby employees, when you baby teams, when you baby kids, you can't go tougher later. It doesn't work.
By this point, these types of things should not upset us necessarily, because we should be used to those things. But it is a complete and from this perspective, this is a distortion of the facts. What he's trying to do is portray Cam's Mike Shula's moving on and the adoption of Norv Turner as a problem because of Cam's lack of development. And that does not fly. What we saw is that it wasn't Mike Shula and Cam always that was problematic, but the question, have we hit the ceiling of potential with Mike Shula? But where this really starts to irk me, and we'll continue in another clip from Colin Cowherd, is how he talks about the Carolina fan base. And he's making us feel like this just because Cam Newton is such a great star for our city, that we have that we are insecure and that we are not being objective in this case. And we can continue to see that, like when you misrepresent the hiring of Norv Turner and you misrepresent the firing of Mike Shula, and you even misrepresent the relationship or Kelvin Benjamin, you look only at the Cam part of the Kelvin Benjamin comments, you are using these anecdotal moments to help you make a case that is not rooted in reality. And now here we go. Here's more. And this is where it gets offensive to Panther fans and to the Panther market.
All Kelvin Benjamin said is what everybody in the league's been talking about for years. And the minute you push back on Westbrook, the minute you push back on Cam, the small markets, almost collegiate in size, rush to the defense of Cam and Westbrook, and because that's what small markets do. It ain't New York. It's not Philadelphia. It's not Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, multiple teams. The Panthers are a big deal in Charlotte, like a really big deal. We talk about them all the time because of Cam. He's their guy, and the community is going to enable him, and the team enabled him, and the GM enabled him, and the coaches enable him, and now you want to bring on a coach.
So here's the problem I have with these statements right away is that Colin Cowherd is painting Panther fans as unsophisticated because our market isn't necessarily as large as a New York, right? But he threw in or a Dallas into these effects. But if you look at where Carolina has been with Cam Newton under the helm, out of all those teams, I'd be hard pressed to see one of those teams that's been better in the last 7 years than the Carolina Panthers. And it's not because of the insane talent surrounding Cam Newton on the offensive side of the ball, but he mentioned Dallas. He mentioned Chicago. He mentioned Philadelphia. Now, obviously they won the Super Bowl, but we went to the Super Bowl. We did just fall short. I understand that's a big difference. New York, where have they been in the last 8 years? This small, and like Atzilla H says, can we stop the small market BS? We're not that freaking small. In fact, you're right, is we are a growing market. We have 2 states, and it is not just a coddling. This is just something you want to act like, hey, we are defending our guy in the face of everything, right? And this is the last point we're going to make on Colin Cowherd and how he misconstrues and use these. This is anecdotal, right? Where he's finding one thing where he thinks he can use to make a case that he is already formed. And here he goes.
Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong on a Monday. Let's roll it, baby.
Where Colin was right.
Kelvin Benjamin came out, called Cam Newton out. There's a reason Carolina brought in Norv Turner. Stop enabling coddling and baby. All Kelvin Benjamin said is, you know, any other accurate quarterback like Rodgers or Big Ben, any quarterback with knowledge, I'd have a better chance to make more catches. That's the book on Cam Newton. By the way, wide receivers, running backs do get frustrated with Cam. And by the way, Carolina's got good enough players. Stop it. They've got one of the top 10 offensive lines in football right now. They've got 2 good running backs, the best front 7 defensively, in my opinion, in the NFL. Rock solid general manager, rock solid coaching. Kelvin Benjamin said what people like me say, we're called haters. He's just a teammate.
Now, where I got crazy on this is that, you know, there might be something to where you could say that the talent around Cam hasn't been as bad as potentially people say. I disagree, is that it hasn't been good. We have continued to rely on Cam to do everything with either aging guys or retreads or something to that effect. But this is where you know he's full of shit, or he's really talking out his ass. Coastal Elites versus us, what I say. The sophisticated Colin Cowherd versus the country bumpkin Tony Dunn and the C3 podcast, like you guys mentioned. What is he talking about here? He said rock solid coaching. Man, we just fired our offensive coordinator and hired a new one. We have seen 2 defensive coordinators move on. There's been some movement among these teams. Ken Dorsey was our quarterback's coach. So let's not act like this. And Ron Rivera, while he has been a good coach, this is his first run as a head coach. It's not like he is this tenured guy with all of this history. But next, rock solid GM. We just fired a GM 4 days before the season last year, right? And now you've got an interim GM. The team has been under a scandal and a sale with an interim GM who was our former GM who was fired, and Marty Herney, who is now coming back. Let's not paint this as a model of stability and a model of just everything was right for Cam Newton and he fell under. No. So this is where we know that these things are what you're doing is you're using anecdotal moments to paint a picture while you're disregarding the reality or at least other evidence that's contradictory to your point. So this is why I just felt like it has to be said. Well, look, we deal with this every single year. This is the time. Look, everybody talks shit about Cam Newton in the offseason. It's the only time you can, folks, because when Cam's out there, even when he's having a bad game, you recognize that you can only talk so much jack about the guy who always keeps you in the game. So what I say to Colin Cowherd is,
This makes no sense. This makes no sense.
Makes no sense. All right, this is the time we get into the show. It's just you and I, folks. Tony Dunn, the professor, and your calls and the people in the chat room. It's the Cat Calls line. You can reach and be a part of the show using the telephone number 252-228-5098. It's the hotline where you can leave a message anytime, any day to have your opinion heard. We've got a couple of calls this week to get through, and I'm sure they're going to be good.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use
Good, C3. It's your boy Jacob. Got in a big debate / argument about defenses tonight, and I'm sick of talking about the front seven, so I started looking at the front four, which arguably is one of the best we ever had. But I look back to my favorite, the best, 03. Chris Jenkins, Brunson Buckner in the middle, Julius Peppers, young Julius Peppers, and Mike Walker on the outside. These people blocked extra points. They blocked field goals. They changed games.
True that.
Like, this is the first time I think our front four can do that. Everyone talks about the front seven. The front four can do that. I'm not going to say that they can do it out through special teams and everything like the old school one did. I don't think anyone will match that D-line for what they did for the complete team. But that's what I'm thinking this year. Like, people are so underestimating us losing Star and bringing in Don Terry Poe into this line. And not only that, but starting Julius Peppers. I like this line. It reminds me if I just got to pick on Madden and just pick some of the best of all time.
Amen.
Of course, some of these other guys would come in, but that's what I went back and looked at. And then you put Luke and Shaq and TD and everyone behind it. Hopefully, the secondary can play role players, and that's all we need. And this defense is going to be a top 5 or better. Like, if they just role play. They don't even have to show out. Just role play. The offense is yet to be seen. I'm like totally excited about it, but sure. But the defense is my happiness. I'm glad we're good. Losing Cockrell sucked, but we have a good defense, man. The front four. That front four is nasty. You play them on offense. Love you, C3. J-Dub, I got to get out, but you see what I'm saying? That front four. Don't worry about the front seven. Keep pounding.
All right, great call there. Referencing the 12-9 victory when he said that they won games blocking extra points and blocking field goals. We're talking about the September game of a magical season in 2003, where we go to the Super Bowl, where you have a team. In many ways, I would argue that this defense is resemblant of that Panthers defense in 2003. The difference being at safety, we have, and at corner, I think you had some guys that were a little bit more proven, and Mike Minter, obviously, that have been around with that team for a little bit longer. But you had some guys there, you got some talent, but that front four was impressive. They blocked 3 kicks against the Bucs to win a 12-9 victory. But here's how it finished. With 5 seconds left in that game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Brad Johnson, hit a touchdown pass to Keenan McCardle, and it was 11-play drive, 82 yards with a minute and it took a minute and 49 seconds for the drive. With 5 seconds left, it looks like this team is going to go ahead and beat the Panthers 10-9. And then they block the extra point, and Carolina Panthers can go into overtime and win that game. I remember I was at BW3s when it was still downtown Greenville. I remember that game, and it was one of those games that told me there was something special to this season, that this defense was going to be there until the offense started clicking. It was a magical moment. Way to point that out. I do think you're right, is that with Star and Poe, not Star, with KK Short and Poe together, I think that's like an Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh, maybe better than that combination. Really excited to see that. We need Addison become a full-time player. Actually, not become a full-time player, to remain a full-time player, right? To continue to ascend. We need to make sure that last year wasn't the apex of his career. And we do need Julius Peppers to continue to be effective. Great call, J-Dub. J-Dub, check your email for the C3 Fantasy Football Challenge.
Hey, guys. JJ from Carborough here, and was watching the Hall of Fame game last night to get my fix in, and realized that RG3 is apparently a capable backup. So just wondering what y'all's thoughts were on us acquiring RG3 in place of Whitey number 1 or Whitey number 2.
Interesting call right there.
You know, they all just look the same, don't they?
True that.
Hey,
all right.
What's up, T3 Puck?
All right. So question continues to be, and I heard that it was Frank Garcia on WFNZ talking about this earlier in this week, and one of the things he was interested in this, and actually the only thing he was interested in when it was coming down to these preseason games, was to see who could potentially be this backup quarterback. I think they're going to go Garrett Gilbert or Gilbert Garrett or whatever his name, Double G. I think that he looked pretty good in the preseason last year, good enough. I think, though, on top of this, is that unless if you're going to see a quarterback get cut and them really target, I think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater from the Jets. Now, I don't know if he's going to get cut. Probably won't. Teddy Bridgewater can play, man. And Norv Turner has a familiarity with him. I think RG3 is just kind of, to me, like a little bit of a hot potato. And not that even him being a backup would be a hot potato. Is I just don't even know. Is that if Cam goes down, I'm of the opinion that our season is pretty much just over. And maybe people don't like to hear that. And maybe the general management would like to say, nah, because look at what Philadelphia did with Nick Foles and things like that. I don't know. I just don't know if I believe that. I think that they internally have already made the decision that if they go down, if Cam Newton goes down, like the odds are that we don't have what it takes to get back past that. So RG3, though, is a name I've seen other people bring up. Would be interested to see what some other names outside of that would be, if there are any. I heard Matt Moore being one. Nope. I'd rather have Garrett Gilbert not take up any spots on the roster or lose any younger talent in that case. Thank you for the call, man. Appreciate it. And we'll continue to watch that. And this preseason game this Thursday against the Bills will give us some insight into maybe how they're starting to feel about that.
Yes, I love your podcast. I told you on Twitter the other day that I'd call you on podcast about 2 weeks ago, but I got a question for you guys, probably off topic, but I see a lot of people putting Steve Smith not even ranked in like the top 10 wide receivers of all time. And personally, I think he's ranked at 5. I have him behind Jerry Rice, T.O., Randy Moss, and Larry Fitzgerald. What do you guys think? Let me know your feedback on that. But
tough question there.
And fuck Kelvin Benjamin.
Tough question there. Steve Smith is top 10 receiver. Let's put it that way. Let's just say triple crown. That's all you have. 2 words, triple crown. I think it's hard to argue, or we can continue to split hairs about 4 and 5. I'd say this is because we're going to get into things like this, like you misspoke when you said T.O. over Randy. Misspoke. Yeah, like Randy arguably to me is the best. I mean, I know Jerry Rice maybe have the best stats. Sorry, that's not going to be. I love some Randy Moss. Boy, Randy Moss is good. But yeah, is that Steve Smith is going to be always underrated as a wide receiver and how good he was because of a simple thing, is that he kind of got caught up in wide receiver purgatory for about 5 years of his career. If you think about from 2007 to 2011, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, exactly 5 years of his career. Steve Smith's career was just done, and it wasn't necessarily because of him. It was because of the impossible quarterback play that you had and the situations you were put in. You saw Jake Delhomme fall off a cliff immediately. It was crazy to see how bad Jake had fallen, and part of it may be mental. They said it was the shoulder and things, but those two back-to-back games, the playoff game against the Cardinals and then the opening season game the next year, just blew it, and you just completely fell off after that. Steve Smith kind of got locked up on a team where even when they had some success in 2008, it was because of double trouble, not their ability to throw the ball. I mean, he actually, you had him and who was it? Keyshawn together, I think. And then he did have maybe potentially an injury in one of those years too. So I think we'll never really fully get to see what Steve Smith and how good he was. And I'm sure there's a lot of other players in the league that could say those types of things. Yeah, I think Brandon Herbert's bringing this up. Calvin Johnson being a name that's really that's an important name to consider in this discussion. He put Chris Carter. I think Chris Carter's slightly overrated. What about Marvin Harrison? What about Reggie Wayne? I always said this, is that the Panthers should have traded Steve Smith to the Indianapolis Colts in 2008, when that thing fell off the cliff. And not because I didn't want Steve Smith, had nothing to do with this. I felt bad for Steve Smith. I felt like we were a problem for him. And you saw that as soon as Cam Newton got there, my man, off the shelf, back into the action. I thought this, you put Steve Smith on a team like with Peyton Manning, good God, that would have been, Peyton Manning would have used him like crazy town. You would have said all the things you say about Reggie Wayne, you would have said those types of things tenfold about Steve Smith. Patriots, he could have been there in the Patriots with that, so there was that purgatory period that really was tough for Steve Smith. Tough question to answer, though, and that'd be an interesting thing, because who are some other guys? Again, Triple Crown.
Hey, everybody. This is the world famous
My G.
Cavassier. Now, I know you guys have been paying attention on NFL Network, ESPN, FS1, and on the internet about what Kelvin Benjamin said about Cam Newton.
Yep.
Now, before I get into this, like I said, I believe that Kelvin Benjamin was a bust, but I have to excuse myself because I look at his stats. Really, he really wasn't a bust. I mean, this dude, his rookie year, he had 9 receiving touchdowns, over 1,000 yards. And I think in the second year, he had like 7, I think, or like 900 receiving yards. So that's pretty good, But what makes me kind of angry is the way he's attacking Cam and saying he should have went to a better team with a more accurate quarterback like, Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben. Now, you guys all noticed that 3 of those quarterbacks, they have a Super Bowl ring. But that's another story another day. But the thing is, like, with Kelvin Benjamin, is like, he came in the 2014 draft. And this is something that I kind of, like, realized that I didn't realize earlier. Okay, we got him in 2014 out of Florida State, and he said that he shouldn't have been drafted by the Panthers. But if you guys remember that draft, they had some good wide receivers in that draft. Kelvin Benjamin went to Carolina, that same year. Marcus Lee got drafted. Jordan Matthews got drafted. Devontae Adams got drafted. Allen Robinson.
There you go. That was the guy that I was calling
and
for.
Jarvis Landry. All them men got drafted in 2014 draft. My thing is, Kelvin Benjamin, if you're listening, which I know you're not because you just turned your back on Carolina, and that's fine. That's A-okay. But don't come at Cam like that because, we went 15-1 without you. You weren't even on the team.
That's why he's mad.
15-1,
I think Cody's right.
And my Panthers went to the Super Bowl. And he was in
Odell, too.
So you should watch your tone. And those who bite Carolina, we all know the history. We bought them back the following year. So you guys give me your take on that. And Kelvin Benjamin, you're not a bust. You just are just a poor route runner. And you came in overweight, but I'll still rock your jersey. Y'all have a good night. And remember, keep pounding.
All right, so what I feel like I'm going to go back to Kelvin Benjamin. We spent a lot of time on him in this show tonight, but for me with Kelvin Benjamin is I think the stats do lie in some cases. Had a very remarkable rookie year, one that was far better than expected in a class that was just crazy. Like we're talking Allen Robinson, we're talking about Odell, Mike Evans, and Kelvin Benjamin had a year that was in the conversation of those guys that year. Now, you know, I mean, he's obviously sidelined with this major injury the following year, and then the Carolina Panthers continue on to the Super Bowl and have a lot of success. I think Kelvin Benjamin's stats are a little padded, though. And the reason I say they're padded is I think Cam Newton favored Kelvin Benjamin. And, you know, I don't wonder at this point why that was. Was there this personal relationship, friend to friend, these types of things? But Cam wanted to get him the ball. And in that 2016 season, when you're coming back, when you're having those tough games in that, and you got nobody else on the team around you, who else really? It was Devin Funchess, and Devin Funchess was in the sophomore slump. So, I mean, what else did he have a choice to do? Is that we saw some good things. So I think the stats can be padded. I mean, look at a Blake Bortles and the receivers that they do in the fourth quarter there. He's not welcome to me. Is that I didn't want him. I thought we drafted him way too high. I thought you could have gotten him in the second. And like Lino said, is I wanted Allen Robinson. I wrote on him. I wrote on how young he was and how athletic he could be. And you know, we missed on that. I also wanted Bradley Roby at that point. But, you know, we went all in on it, and a lot of those guys haven't worked out. And so Kelvin Benjamin, he's in his feelings right now. Something happened to him and Cam, and I think it goes down to Cam is far more committed than he is. And, you know, it's hard to keep up with Cam.
Tony, Mel, Zoe, Cody, boy Jada.
Back.
And I'm sure we're all going to talk about this Kelvin thing, but I'm pretty proud of our guys, the way we handled it. I don't think we did anything but take the high road. Hope when Cam uses this as fuel and we just use our playing football and not our words, because Kelvin likes to talk, but he never liked to do a whole lot. I had so much promise for him on my ground for Florida State. Like, yeah, Florida State was their team growing up, so I always cheered him on with her. And him coming out of there, I was so happy, and he just let me down, like, with his work ethic. And I was willing to let that all slide and, you know, still love him, even though he's with Carolina, North Buffalo, whatever. But it's just silly that he did this. I mean, Brandon Bean and McDermott, they're not going to react well to this.
Benjamin tears, man.
Is coming out of frustration.
I want to say mean things to him.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lack of interest for him when he's a free agent, either after this year or if they get rid of him. I mean, he needs to be careful to make that roster because they just got Corey Coleman, sorry. They got Corey Coleman from the Browns in a trade today. So, and McDermott already said he wasn't happy. Bean and McDermott are Panthers forever, like, even no matter where they ever go. So, I don't know what he was thinking. But we play you on Thursday. It's only preseason. You're lucky about that. But there's Kelvin. I'm glad at how Cam handled it, and I'm glad how Greg had his back. I'm not surprised one bit, but it was good to see. It just makes sense. Like, Olsen just told the truth. I'm gonna hit you with facts. I'm not saying some of the stuff he didn't say about Cam was true, but it's a two-way street, man. You gotta take some responsibility, kid. Like, I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know if you're missing your Bojangles or what's going on, but man, stop eating, play football, worry about your own team, man, and try to better yourself. Because you know over here, we'll keep pounding.
All right, so one thing I do want to mention about this is that this is not the first time Kelvin Benjamin has been like this a little bit. He's a little bit cryy last year. He had a walkout on practice. Or at least maybe we made too big of a deal of it. He could have just had to go take a dump for all we know. But there was something there, and then he got traded, right? So there's something to this beyond that has something to do with Kelvin Benjamin. And we cannot believe that it's just Cam Newton being a egomaniac, self-centered, because he seems to have handled the departure of Kelvin Benjamin, like Cody said earlier in the show, with some very some important words about how he liked Kelvin Benjamin as a player and how he liked him as a Panther. So he didn't turn on him. You know, he didn't dump on him after games and things. And Cam Newton has never tried to throw his players under the bus. There's something there. And right now, I've come to the point here, I don't like Kelvin Benjamin. I didn't like him when he was drafted. Now you guys are going to say, oh, you saying that now. No, go back and look at the tape. It was the first year we did the live draft party, and I was upset about the Kelvin Benjamin draft pick. A lot of times I'm thinking this, we can get these guys later. And we really missed in an opportunity. So that's where I was at that point. Bradley Roby was the guy I wanted at 28. I wanted Allen Robinson in second. None of that happened. But here we go. Last call of the night.
Yeah, I feel like Cam handled it as good as he could have, really. It just makes KB look bad. But really, he said what he should have. He shouldn't add fuel to the fire. You know, that's how exactly I'd want my quarterback to handle it.
Cam Newton's not going to get any credit, though, for how he has improved as a professional, as how he has improved as a in dealing with these types of moments, and how well he's handled the change of ownership, how well he's handled this transition with GMs, how well he's actually handled other people playing very poorly while him being playing well. He won't ever get any credit for that. He'll just be focused on with the towel over his head, the pouty press conference that they call after the Super Bowl. So people like Colin Cowherd will never recognize these moments. But one last point about Colin Cowherd and what these guys do. What a lot of problems I have with the commentary about Cam Newton is they reduce him now to this moment as being the only moment that tells anything about his career. And what they don't do is take Cam Newton's career at the arc of what these other guys who they compare him to have had. You know, Drew Brees didn't start out as the greatest quarterback in the world. In fact, he was cut by the San Diego Chargers or released, and then he goes to New Orleans. And it's later in his career that he really has this kind of this birth into this great quarterback. Now, he was good in San Diego, don't get me wrong, but he was not, you would not have been talked about him in the same light. You're talking about this. When you talk about a Tom Brady, you're talking about a guy and a quarterback that had a good team and a good coaching staff around him earlier in his career, where he didn't have to be the only guy that carried a team. You know, you're talking about a guy who then matured into that position and that role and became more than he was. So what I think is, what I'm trying to get to is that with Cam Newton, we got to think of the arc of the player. He's 29 years old. To condense his career, his entire career, into the moment that you can, the most recent moment, the most recent interception, the most recent missed pass, negates all the things in the complete arc of the story that has not yet to be completed. So for all we know, and all we've seen, is Cam Newton, in my opinion, improve from year to year to year to year. So I would just caution people to remember that reducing people's careers and lives to a snippet may not be the fairest thing and the most accurate assessment. So I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in the C3 podcast. And you're right, Jamin Walker says, we're lucky to have Cam. And that's the thing, is we know what his life is like without a quarterback. We also know what life is like without. Look, we have been spoiled by Cam, and our offense has been spoiled by Cam Newton because we can continue to just put Cam out there. And whenever Cam's out there, no matter who he's with, no matter if it's Byron Bell at left tackle or whoever you put out there, you always have a shot when Cam Newton's out there. They don't remember those things like that. They do want to continue to say, now look, Cam, are there some layups he misses that drive you crazy? Yes. But don't focus on what he doesn't do perfectly at every moment or a misplay, and forget about all the good things that you contribute, because what these pundits fail to tell you to do is this, is without Cam, what do you do? Without those players, what do you do? And that is, I would rather have Well, actually, I'm not going to say any crude examples here, but there is you can't be critical and then not have a secondary plan, right? This is what I tell my students when they're critiquing academic works. It's one thing to critique, and that is fine, to poke holes at somebody. But really, if you want to make strong criticism, you need to tell them how they could do it better. And we don't need to just tell Cam how he can do it better. What you need to be is this. If Cam is so terrible to you guys, how do we replace him and become a better team without him? And right now, that's why people gravitate towards Norv Turner, because Norv Turner says those things. He says this, look, this is not unique to Cam. What we need to do is put other guys around Cam that make him better too. So, good gosh, this is the C3 podcast. It's been going on for an hour and 45 minutes. My name's Tony Dunn. I'm going to do my ice up pick of the week. And it's not going to be Colin Cowherd, even though it should be. I'm going to ice up President Trump. I don't like to get political. Actually, I love getting political. I'm trying to get less political. But he called out, and I don't even know, I didn't even read into the research or any of these things about it. I just saw him say that this guy, Don Lemon, is the dumbest man on TV, and he made LeBron James look smart. And I think that, look, first of all, it's a very inconsiderate, unpresidential thing to take a swipe at somebody and their intelligence, particularly when they are at the top of something in their career. They're great at something, and we've seen this person throughout come straight out of high school and into the NBA. And we know, if one thing we know about LeBron James is he's not dumb. You know, I mean, that's what we know. Other than, you know, so look, President Trump. I mean, look, I know everybody is firing shots at over political stuff right here, but it is really saddening to me that in America, that at this moment, we make ourselves feel better when we trash other people. I guess that's what Kelvin Benjamin did, right? So for you guys, when you're thinking about how to go forward to tomorrow, and you think about how you're going to interact, is like Greg Olsen said, why don't we look at ourselves a little bit? And it's not saying that we are the problem. I'm just saying this, we can control us. So President Trump, you can control yourself. Well, obviously can't control yourself, but damn, man, get out of that type of mudslinging. And it's deflection. And I tell you, you're deflecting because of something else going on. So I tell you guys to ice up, be truthful, be authentic. My name's Tony Dunn. It's the C3 podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions. You find all our work on the website, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. If you're listening now, and especially if you were in the league last year, C3 Fantasy Football Challenge secretly open today. And I told everybody that was in the league last year that they would have a few days to get ahead. But look, if you listen to the podcast for an hour and 49 minutes, you deserve a little tip of the cap too. So you can go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You can click on the C3 Fantasy Football Challenge. You can check out the greatest fantasy football challenge for Panther football fans. If you buy the premier package, there's going to be 48 teams in this challenge. It really works. We've done it for 5 years now. Where we're going to be raffling off an autographed Christian McCaffrey jersey, an autographed team photo by Julius Peppers, and a Cam Newton jersey, all on the first night. Weekly prizes, cash prize of a DJ Moore jersey, $300 for the winner of the entire challenge. So you guys can find that information there. You can hit me up if you want more info. I send it to you. There's only 48 spots. So you guys check it out. And so if you want in, Brandon, you go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com right now. You go and you select the C3 Fantasy Football Challenge, and you can register right there, and I'll hook you up and get you in. And my advice is go premium, folks, because really you get a T-shirt. You're going to get an I Stand with Cam T-shirt, which makes, look, we had the I Stand with Cam T-shirt before anybody, we made it. And that's going back to the media hurling insults at him. But I think it means a lot this year. It's going to be great. That's why I put it in, because of Benjamin stuff, and made that. So you can check out all the prizes there. And you can check us out next week at our normal time, our normal day, Tuesday night. And you can guarantee that I will say we'll go 1 hour and we will go longer. Peace out, fellas.